Hello my good friends, I hope you're all doing well. Welcome to another Digi FanArt video. I wasn't sure at first which playlist to put this video in, to be honest, because it's going to be more than just discussing fan art. So, in this video I wanted to talk about a Digimon that doesn't actually exist, despite all the references pointing towards it. I know that might sound a bit strange, but hear me out. Recently I've been watching a lot of cutscenes from God of War Ragnarok. In that story, the big villain is none other than the Norse god Odin. And to give a quick recap, Odin is the All-Father, the first of the Aesir, the primary tribe of gods in Old Norse religion. He embodies power, war and wisdom, and resides in the realm of Asgard. That's why Odin is considered the god of war, death, poetry, wisdom and more. As the most powerful being in the cosmos, according to Norse mythology, Odin wandered the universe in search of wisdom. No matter the depiction, he's always shown with one eye, with the other concealed in some way. That's because he sacrificed one of his eyes at Mimir's well in exchange for profound wisdom and knowledge. He plucked out his own eye and offered it to Mimir, the guardian of the well, as payment for a drink of its waters. In return, Odin gained immense wisdom, making him far more insightful and powerful, though forever left with one eye. Of course, this is just a very quick summary of Odin. There's so much more I could say about him. For example, did you know that according to early accounts of travelers in Northern Europe, human sacrifices were made in his honor? Pretty wild, right? But that information isn't really relevant for the video. Anyway, while Odin himself has never been digitalized as an official Digimon, there are tons of references to him in the digital world. It really makes me wonder why we haven't gotten an Odinmon yet. The Norse gods have been represented in many different ways and their influence is visible, but they've never been fully reincarnated into a Digimon form, except for maybe one or two characters who do show up. So in this video we're going to go through some of those references before circling back to Odin himself, who is the main focus of today's discussion. One thing I noticed while doing my analysis is that most, if not all Digimon who reference something related to the Norse gods seem to have some kind of control over the cold. Take Valkyrimon as the first example. Valkyrimon is based on the Valkyries, female figures in Norse mythology who guide the souls of fallen warriors to Odin's hall, Valhalla. Valhalla, or the Hall of the Slain, is a magnificent hall in Asgard where Odin welcomes those who died bravely in battle. And these chosen souls spend their days training and fighting only to be healed and feast every night, preparing to fight for Odin in the final battle of Ragnarok. And we're going to talk about Ragnarok in a moment. And I would say that in another life, Valkyrimon would absolutely be among those guiding souls to that great hall. Now, remember how I said that Digimon tied to Norse mythology often have cold-based powers? Well, Valkyrimon wields the cursed Absolute Zero Fenrir sword, a weapon that can freeze opponents and shut down their vital functions. Valkyrimon is perhaps the clearest example of a Digimon whose roots trace directly back to Northern mythology. The reference isn't subtle at all. It is literally a Valkyrie. And the references don't stop there. Its sword, which controls the cold, is named Fenrir. Fenrir in Norse mythology is a monstrous wolf who plays a central role in Ragnarok. He is foretold to help bring about the end of the world, setting it aflame, causing the collapse of human society and ultimately killing Odin himself. And we're going to talk about Fenrir in a moment, because there's also a Digimon reincarnation of Fenrir. But I would say that when it comes to Valkyrimon, to have the sword named Fenrir, that's a powerful reference, right? Valkyrimon will get its own dedicated video because it has even more layers of Norse mythology. Other examples are Zudomon and Vikimon, two Digimon who not only control the cold but also live in it. What's especially interesting is that Zudomon carries what the Digimon developers literally called Thor's hammer, which it uses to unleash devastating shockwaves. Thor, of course, is the Norse god of thunder and one of Odin's children. What always struck me as odd is that the developers didn't call the weapon by its real mythological name, namely Mjolnir. Instead, they just went with Thor's hammer. I've always found that a little confusing, but oh well. Another key detail about Zudomon is that it typically steals the tools it uses, whether that's the shell on its back or the hammer it wields. So that makes me wonder, did Zudomon steal this hammer from a Digimon reincarnation of Thor himself, or was it just the hammer alone that was digitalized into the digital world? And one last thing, I'm sure most of you are familiar with Mjolnir from the Marvel movies, where only someone worthy can lift it, but that's a Marvel invention. In the original Norse mythology, there was no spell of worthiness. Thor was simply the one strong enough to wield it effectively. In fact, Thor even wore a special belt that doubled his already enormous strength whenever he wielded his hammer. That might explain why Zudomon is categorized as a power Digimon. It would need that kind of raw strength to carry Thor's hammer. On the other hand, Zudomon's Digivolution, Vikimon, wields a massive morning star called Mjolnir, and since Vikimon is clearly a Digimon with roots tied back to Norse mythology, it's no surprise that it is also master of the element of ice. Speaking of Vikimon, do you remember the video we made about Gumamon's final form, if it were to evolve through its bond of reliability? In that one, we suggested that it could become Final Vikimon. The link is in the description box if you haven't seen it yet. But look closely at its eyes. There's only one. That's a direct reference to the god Odin. Honestly, that might be my favorite piece of Digimon fan art ever. The detail, the symbolism, the references, they're just crazy. Now, speaking of Odin, there's also the holy warrior Digimon known as Kentaurosmon or Sleipmon when using its northern name. This Digimon acts as the guardian of super ancient ruins that lie beneath the thick ice of the digital world's North Pole. According to lore, those ruins contain essential program data related to the very creation of Digimon itself. The name Sleipnir comes directly from Odin's legendary 8-legged horse. And interestingly, Sleipnir has a descendant named Gram, the steed of the legendary hero Sigurd, the one who slew the dragon Fafnir. And there's a cool connection. Digimon has a royal knight, Galantmon, who rides a flying dragon machine named Gram. So, you see how deep these Norse influences run. They don't just show up in Digimon tied to ice, they even spill over into other parts of the digital world's mythology. Back to Kentaurosmon. Aside from living in the digital world's polar regions, it also wields ice-based techniques. One of them is called Icy Breath, also known as Odin's Breath, which lowers the surrounding temperature and creates a massive blizzard. And one last reference before I get to the main point of the video, Impmon, but more specifically Impmon X. At first, it might surprise you that I'm including it there, but Impmon X actually has mastery over both fire and ice. And when you look closely at its design, you'll notice it has an eye patch, just like Odin. So once again, we see the theme of Norse mythology combined with cold powers showing up. And that reminds me, we actually talked about Impmon X and Beelzemon Blast Mode in a dedicated video. We even went deeper into the comparison with Odin there. If you haven't seen it yet, I would definitely recommend checking it out, especially because some of your comments helped shape that video. So one of your comments helped me make that video, and now one of your comments actually inspired me to make this video. In fact, it was that very comment that really shocked me, because the Digimon that resembles Odin the most is actually one we've already analyzed in depth. That Digimon is none other than the fallen angel Bagramon. Shocking, isn't it? I never made the connection before, but now it makes complete sense. In a way, you could even say that Bagramon's story mirrors Odin's, just with a few key differences. Okay, let me show the exact comment that made me come to this conclusion. Sims8717 wrote the following in the Explaining Bagramon Digivolution line video, and I quote, "The story of Bagramon's origins has inspirations from Odin's journey to godhood when it comes to Yggdrasil and its fall. Odin hung himself from the tree of knowledge to gain knowledge of the universe and become a god. He also sacrificed his eye to the guardian of Mimir's well to gain wisdom. You can say it parallels Bagramon, who also lost and in a way sacrificed its eye after a conflict with God, where it gained self-consciousness of its role in the angelic pantheon. Then, by making the tree a part of himself, it learned from it and ascended to godhood." Unquote. Doesn't that say everything? The parallels between Bagramon and Odin are subtle, but they're definitely there. Think about it. Both stories have Yggdrasil at the center. In Norse mythology, Yggdrasil is the great world tree, the backbone of existence that connects the 9 worlds and supports all of creation. In the Digimon universe, or more specifically in the Digimon Cross Wars universe, Yggdrasil also plays that central role, serving as the backbone of the digital world, well, until its death. In Norse mythology, Odin sacrificed himself by hanging on Yggdrasil's branches for 9 days and nights to gain wisdom. In Digimon, Bagramon fused part of its broken body with the tree itself, which allowed it to become all-knowing. Odin sacrificed his eye at Mimir's well to gain deeper understanding of the hidden truth of the world, and meanwhile, Bagramon didn't willingly sacrifice its eye, it lost it in a battle against God. But here's the twist. It replaced that missing eye with a ruby that granted it the ability to see all that is hidden. And then another striking similarity between Odin and Bagramon is found in the War of Ragnarok. This was the great apocalyptic battle in Norse mythology that led to the end of the world, with both gods and giants perishing in the conflict. Odin himself died in the war, devoured by the monstrous wolf Fenrir. Interestingly, after the destruction, 2 human survivors emerged to repopulate the world. And the same kind of story happens with Bagramon. It also died during a massive war that was set off by a chain of events spiraling out of control. Now, unlike Odin, it wasn't killed by Fenrilogamon, who is the Digimon that represents Fenrir. Remember? The very wolf who devoured Odin. Oh, and by the way, if you're interested, we've already done a full video on Fenrilogamon here on the channel. The link is in our description box. Instead, after the war and after Bagramon's death, 2 new beings were born from its data. There is the old Clockman and there is Quartzmon, 2 entities created out of the remains of Bagramon itself. And that's a little bit like the 2 humans who emerged after the Battle of Ragnarok. So now you can see why I'm saying that Bagramon's story feels heavily inspired by Odin's. The parallels are honestly striking. And it makes me wonder, how would the Digimon developers ever introduce an Odinmon into the digital world, considering Bagramon has already taken so much from Odin's mythos? Of course, if we were to brainstorm a little, I'm sure we would come up with a way to introduce Odinmon. But speaking of, out of curiosity, I actually went online to see if anyone had already tried to design an Odinmon, and I was blown away by the creativity of the fandom. There are so many amazing attempts to bring Odinmon to life, and you will see that there's such a variation in the way Odinmon looks that there are obviously plenty of ways to introduce the Digimon into the digital world. For example, here's an Odinmon designed by the legendary tamer. In this version, Odinmon is a humanoid raven, and that makes a ton of sense, since Odin is associated with 2 ravens, Hugin and Munin, which mean thought and memory. Every day they fly out into the world to gather knowledge and news, then return to whisper their secrets into Odin's ear. So having Odinmon being designed as a humanoid raven is a brilliant touch, and honestly, one of the most unique fan creations I've seen concerning Odin. What makes it even better is that this Odinmon still has a missing eye, but in this design, the missing eye is covered by Isi's crest, which is an important crest concerning Odin, as this crest symbolizes knowledge. And honestly, that crest would fit Odinmon perfectly. Another fascinating Odin-inspired Digimon comes from Yokaiju 1. In this version, Odinmon has the 2 ravens, but takes on a quadrupedal form, which is a really interesting twist. I also love the detail of the triangle symbol on its shoulder pad. Depending on the context, the triple triangle design can represent a few different things, but in Norse mythology it's most commonly known as the Valknut. The symbol is strongly tied to Odin and represents death, warriors, the afterlife, and the eternal circle of life. We're lucky that Yokaiju 1 included a description of the created Odinmon, which really helps bring the design to life. The following was written: a formidable member of the Asia Lords, this Digimon wields code as a weapon, rewriting an opponent's data with devastating spells known as Data Warp. Its most powerful attack is a spear of pure magic called Gungnir. Now, in this context, Gungnir is indeed a spear, and that's perfect because in Norse mythology, Gungnir is the legendary spear of Odin. It's an enchanted weapon said to never miss its mark. And here's where it gets even crazier. In the Digimon franchise, Gallantmon Crimson Mode wields a spiritual lance also named Gungnir. So once again we see just how many references to Norse mythology are woven throughout the Digimon multiverse. Oh, and before we move on, I have to stop and talk about the crows. Remember how Odin is always associated with his two ravens, Hugin and Munin? Well, wouldn't it be something if those ravens had Digimon forms of their own? As it turns out, an artist named Alison Fabrizi actually created one called Hugimunimon. And from the name you can tell it is likely a fusion of the digital reincarnation of Hugin and Munin. And honestly, the design is just incredible. The blend of black and white, the raven emerging from its form, the glowing symbols on its hat, the staff, it's just so well put together. And we were given a description of this Digimon. Let me read it for you, and I quote: inspired by the crows of Odin, Hugin and Munin emerges Hugimunimon. This shadowy mega-level Digimon flies through the Digimundo network in search of data, information, and knowledge to bring back to its master Odinmon. Even though it's a master of stealth, capable of turning invisible, it is often spotted in the sky as it flies across the digital world in a single day. Despite being known as the fastest, most cunning and cruel Digimon to ever exist, it rarely engages in battle unless ordered by its master. Its focus is always on its main mission. Isn't it fantastic? Hugimunimon's design and backstory perfectly honors Odin's ravens, giving them their own place in the digital world. It really shows the limitless creative potential that Digimon has as a franchise. To finish, the last piece of fan art I want to show you is the one made by Addrianodivino, who created an Odinmon designed as a fusion between Vikimon and Hercules Kabuterimon. You can clearly see the influences from both, like the antlers on the crown, which come from Hercules Kabuterimon, and the body and beard, which are more inspired by Vikimon. It is such an original take and a perfect example of how fans can blend mythology, Digimon lore, and creativity into something truly unique. And if I'm not mistaken, you can even see an Ikakumon pelt draped over Odinmon's left shoulder in this design. A fantastic detail. Honestly, it makes perfect sense that both Hercules Kabuterimon and Vikimon could fuse into an Odinmon. Think about it. Hercules Kabuterimon is tied to Izzy, who was given the crest of knowledge, and Odin himself is deeply associated with wisdom and knowledge, without forgetting that Hercules Kabuterimon has the reference of Hercules, which is a deity, or at least half deity if you please, and Odin is a deity. On the other hand, there's Vikimon's entire line that carries strong references to Norse mythology, and when you put all of them together, an Odinmon would feel completely natural if it is designed to be the fusion of both. And I have to say, I really prefer this design over some of the other fan attempts I've seen, because in certain artworks, the fusion between Vikimon and Hercules Kabuterimon ended up looking more like another Omnimon variant. Not that it is bad by any means, but I personally think Digimon should remain as unique as possible because their individuality is what gives them such strong identity and personality. But anyway, that brings us to the end of today's video. I hope you learned a thing or two along the way. Let me know in the comments what you think about Odinmon, how you would like to see it portrayed, and for those curious, all of the Odin-inspired fan arts shown in this video will be linked in the comment section. Please go and say to the designers that they've done an amazing work, and you can even link this video onto their platforms, okay? I always like to support fantastic work. Also, what do you think about Bagramon and Odin? Do you agree that their stories run parallel, or do you see it differently? Drop your thoughts below. I'd love to hear your perspectives. And remember, today we focused on Norse mythology in Digimon, but just imagine we could do the same with Egyptian mythology in Digimon and so much more, because Digimon is so big, it's so vast, and there are so many pieces of mythology, history, whatever that is being blended in, and we have yet to unveil all of them. So let me know in the comments which mythology you'd like us to dive into next. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out the dedicated playlist. It's always updated, so you can catch up on both new and older videos anytime.